Do you have to be a Christian in order to go to heaven? If he is God and he is infinite and he is omnipresent, then why isn't there the same Jesus figure in Japan, or the same Jesus figure in Africa, or the same Jesus figure in the Americas? Even though
This skeptic student throws the hardest question at Cliff. If God and Jesus are one, why isn't asking God for forgiveness enough? The tension explodes as they debate miracles, resurrection, and why billions never saw him. But then Cliff hits the pivot, the resurrection. One event, over 500 witnesses, changing everything. This isn't just theology. This is life, death, and what it really means to know God.
if you've been good for most of your life and you've done a little bit of evil, everyone has done evil, but some, I guess we can both admit, have done more than others.
Yes.
Yes. Say someone has led a very, very moral life. Not a perfect life, no one has a perfect life, but a very moral life, but does not ask for forgiveness. Does that little bit of evil make him unworthy to go to heaven? So in other words, hell is filled with people who are morally very good and morally very bad, but heaven only has, in other words, it would have no one, or people who've been morally very bad in their entire life, but very good at the very end and ask for forgiveness.
The heart of sin is pride, and I think it's easy to see pride in an Adolf Hitler with his Aryan supremacy. But when you read the Gospels, you'll notice that the type of pride that Jesus attacked most harshly was religious pride, the Pharisees. And the reason that Jesus attacked religious pride most harshly is because religious pride blinds me to my need of God, my need of Christ. See, when I'm religious, I say, you know something, Ethan? I am better than him. And because I'm better than him, I go to heaven, he goes to hell. And it is that religious self-righteous pride that blinds me to my need of God's mercy, his help. And so that is why Jesus reserved his most scathing words for the religious people of his day, who always compared themselves to others, saying, well, guess what? I've done more good than you have, so I'm going to heaven and you're going to hell. And Jesus went after him with unscathing warnings.
Well, that's back then there wasn't any idea of hell because death was very vague.
It's no different today. I think that all of us in this circle have been royally turned off by self-righteous religious people, be they self-righteous Christians, self-righteous Muslims, self-righteous Jews. Religious arrogance is very difficult to stomach. And what Jesus points out is, we're all sinners. That is why we are all in desperate need of God's grace. And that is what Christ offers us through his death on a cross. And if I reject Christ, what I am in essence rejecting is God's offer of forgiveness and help. So that leads to the second point about hell. C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Great Divorce, in which he talks about people in hell getting on a bus and going to heaven. They get off the bus, they walk around heaven, and they say, forget this. They get back on the bus to go back to hell. Why? Because in heaven, you have to live together with God. And if during this life I make a decision, I don't want to live my life together with God, I want to live my life separate from God, then God, because he respects my free will, is not going to force me to go to heaven against my will. Because I would hate to be in heaven. Because in heaven, I got to live together with God for eternity.
Okay, question. Do you need to ask God for forgiveness or Jesus?
They're one and the same, according to Christ.
Okay, then, so you have to believe in Jesus as your Lord and Savior and the Messiah in order to go to heaven.
Correct.
Then how does that make sense if you're only asking forgiveness from God? If you don't believe in Jesus, if you're a Jew or a Muslim who believes in Jesus as a prophet, and Jews who don't even believe in Jesus as anything other than a historical figure, if you ask for forgiveness from God, isn't that the same thing then? Do you have to be a Christian in order to go to heaven?
Okay, see, what that does is that drives you back to the fundamental question, how do you know who God is? Now, Jesus claimed to be the real, true, living God, opening up and revealing himself for who he really is.
But why did he only reveal himself to only a fraction of people in the middle of the Mediterranean? If he truly was God, wouldn't he have, exposed himself to everyone, to every culture, at every point in time? If he is God and he is infinite and he is omnipresent, then why isn't there the same Jesus figure in Japan, or the same Jesus figure in Africa, or the same Jesus figure in the Americas, even though all these people were living in all these parts of the world at the same time? Why did he only show himself to, say, 10,000 people in ancient Israel and take so here I am, I'm turning water into wine, I'm walking on water, these are my miracles, which are very I mean, compared to the Almighty God and the Old Testament who parted the seas and the 10 plagues and everything, these are very minor miracles compared to everything else. And you're basically asking the people a very small amount to take his word and say, okay, this is me, and now go spread the word. And there were many people back in the day that had the same sort of philosophies and claimed to be the Messiahs themselves, except Jesus was the one that won in that sense, and that's why we have him here. So why is it that we can't all just believe in one God, ask for forgiveness from this one God, and actually have to take this little separate thing that could or could not be true?
Okay, obviously the greatest miracle that Christ performed was rising from the dead. You and I have a date with death. The question is there life after death? Jesus Christ said, I am the resurrection of the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And then he backed up that claim with an historical resurrection. So that's what sets Christ apart from every other major world religious leader.
And the resurrection was only witnessed by 2 women who didn't write the gospel.
Over 500 people, Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15, which is 20 years after the fact, saw Christ risen from the dead. Paul is essentially saying, go out and talk to them if you don't believe me. So Christ appeared not just to 2 women, to over 500 people at different times in different places, risen from the dead.
But he didn't perform any more miracles. He was just walking around, in other words.
That's all that's recorded. You're right. He did not perform any other miracles.
I think it would be a bit vague in that sense if even if Paul records that 500 people did see him rise from the dead.
Saw him risen.
Wouldn't he have done something after he had risen? Wouldn't he have at least brought order back into society, done something?
No.
The Jewish Messiah supposedly is or the 12th Imam in Shia Islam is supposed to bring order in the world once chaos, bring back the kingdom of heaven. The idea of the second coming, wouldn't that be that he would be resurrected for a 3rd time? I'm not really certain about it.
All right, Jesus insisted the first time he came, it was to die. He promised to come back a 2nd time when it would be to establish universal peace, forcefully. But he didn't do that the first time, but he'll do that the 2nd time when he comes a 2nd time. He promised to.
Okay, well, just address the even resurrecting, if it's not really that big of a miracle. And why didn't he appear all over the world?
Okay,
I guess my major
right,
question.
The
resurrection, you can agree that it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm still confused as to why he only appeared in the Mediterranean. Why didn't he appear in the whole world?
I do not know why he didn't get on a boat and travel to Rome. I don't know. But I can promise you that there are going to be a truckload of people in heaven who never heard the word Jesus, obviously, as I think you're alluding to. And Hebrews chapter 11 in the New Testament lists some of these people by name. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Rahab, a Gentile prostitute, obviously never heard about Christ. They were born hundreds of years before him. But in humility, they put their faith in God to the best of their ability. They're going to be in heaven. But why are they going to be in heaven? Not because they did more good than evil. They're going to be in heaven because of God's grace, his forgiveness, his generous love. They're going to be in heaven because Christ died on a cross for their sin. God judges us not according to what we do not know. God judges us according to what we do know. And that is why Jesus says so clearly in Luke chapter 12, verse 47 and 48, that servant who knows his master's will and does not get ready or does not do what his master wants will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded, and from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked.
So in other words, God's chosen people before Jesus' time were the ones who went to heaven because they trusted God and believed in God to the best of their abilities, but those afterwards will not.
If you reject Christ, you're rejecting God, is what Jesus says. So if I hear about Jesus and reject him, I'm rejecting God.
It kind of goes around in circles in a way. You can't really get away from it. If you hear about Jesus, then you're going to hell, but if you don't and you do good, then you're going to heaven.
No, if you never hear about Christ, but to the best of your ability, you put your faith in God, like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Rahab, Noah, Moses, you're going to be in heaven. Those folks are going to be in heaven. They never heard the word Jesus, but in humility, they put their faith in God. They were not sinless people, that's for sure. They were all dirty, rotten sinners, every one of them. But they put their faith in God. They're going to be in heaven. the Bible promises.
I could get into a whole much more, but I have to go.
You bet. Good to meet you, Ethan. Thank you so much.